And if you don't have enough people in their 20s and 30s and early 40s to do the consumption, none of the rest of it works anyway. So we were always going to get here. Trump sped it up. COVID sped it up. Biden is speeding it up. The COVID lockdowns in China are speeding it up. And the Ukraine war, honestly, is a bit of a hard stop. So we're here. We're not going back. Well, I'll definitely agree with you on social media because it's given every wackadoo a bullhorn that we can't tune out anymore. And so it does make more extreme views and more, God, I don't want to sound like elitist here, but relatively uninformed and unintelligent views dominate the information cycle, which is really frustrating for somebody like me who thrives on context. So I won't dive into that. You guys understand that completely. Let me give you two other reasons, though. One, globalization isn't free. It requires someone militarily holding up the ceiling of civilization. And since 1946, that's been the United States. And we're getting out of that business. As of January 1 of this year, not January 1, as of February 21, the day before the Ukraine war started, the U.S. had fewer troops stationed abroad than any time since Reconstruction. We're done. And so as we're having breakdowns in civil control of things like transport, the U.S. just isn't there to protect it or pick up the pieces. And if you don't have broad-scale transport, we're just not interested. And then third, we go through phases in the United States. We have a first-past-the-post electoral system, which means you have to get one more vote than the next guy to get the seat. Well, that encourages the parties to be big tent parties because you have to throw as wide of a net as you can. But that means that the factions that are within the parties are always in motion, rising and falling within their party structures. And from time to time, due to changes in geopolitics or demographics or technology, you have a rupture when those factions just go hog wild and jump fences. We're going through one of those phases right now. We've had the rise of the baby boomers and now the retirement of the boomers. We've had the end of the Cold War and now the end of globalization. We've had the rise of the information age. All of these are disruptive events to society, and all of them by themselves, any of them by themselves, would probably be enough to force a new political reckoning. And for them to all happen in basically the same window, wow. Honestly, it's amazing to me that things have been as settled as they have been of late. Now, we've gone through 6 of these political realignments before. And the last time we went through it, African Americans were to a person Republicans and big business were to a person Democrats. So it's awkward. Things that we think of as normal are now changing. And one of the reasons that everything seems so shrill is each political faction wants to make their issue the litmus test for loyalty for the new political alignment, whatever it happens to be. So look at the abortion debate in that light. Look at what's happening with organized labor. Organized labor strongly supported Donald Trump. Biden is trying to draw them back into the Democratic coalition. We will see if he is successful. Hispanics are shifting wholesale from left to right. This is all part of the process, and we will sort through this. Like I said, this is our 6th, it's happened 6 times before. This is number 7. And it's always awkward and it's always painful and it's always loud. And now we have social media on top of that. And so the populists are absolutely having their day.
Combination.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to try to talk you out of that, but let me give you some background and context here. So let's start with the military. We've spent the last 21 years basically fighting a series of wars in places that we have no desire in having a long-term presence any longer. We have designed our military to be personnel happy because we had to occupy countries. So we now have an army that is bigger and more capable in that field than we really have ever. And we now have to decide how rapidly we want to downsize that. If we want to downsize that, that's a political question. We are not yet having that conversation. But my friends in the military are going to be aghast at this. But with what I see as likely deployments, the Army is probably too big by about 2/3 right now. But decommissioning and downsizing that many troops that quickly costs more than maintaining them. I don't think so. The total standing forces are under 2 million. So I don't think that would be a big concern. And a lot of people serve their tour or do 2 tours, and then at the end of the tour, they go back to the civilian workforce. So my point is that downsizing the military sounds like a quick and easy fix. It's not. It's a decade process, just like it was in the 90s the last time we did that. And you will not get meaningful savings until the 2030s. So that's kind of piece 1. Piece 2, let's talk about the debt a little bit more directly. First of all, it's probably worse than you think. On the political side, the fiscal conservatives have been destroyed as a faction. Trump saw to that. They were the first group that he purged from the Republican Party. They're now swing voters. They're one of the smaller groups out there in terms of voting blocks. And the Democrats under Biden clearly are not interested in making concessions to them to bring them into the fold. So the people who would normally, be the accountants and be wearing the visors, they are no longer part of the conversation at all, which I'm a little bitter about because I'm personally one of them. Second, whatever you're thinking about the debt bomb, it's probably a lot bigger than you think, because not only are the baby boomers about to draw a huge amount of capital, but they have been the world's largest source of the capital now for 20 years. So it's not just that they're going into retirement and they're going to be going on the dole, whether it's Social Security or Medicaid. It's also that we're losing our single largest, single richest tax paying demographic at the same time. So whatever we've had at this point in terms of debt build, it's about to get so much bigger. That's where entitlements come in, because Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, these are so much bigger line items than military spending. And if you're going to be serious about getting back to a black zero for your budgeting plan, that's where the hard work is going to be done. That is much more difficult than simply going after the military. And it will require a lot more sacrifice by people who are voters, because the baby boomers are, even though they're advanced in age, they are the second largest voting bloc right now after the millennials. And they will outnumber Gen X for at least another 12 years. So the single biggest beneficiary of a bad debt environment is the group that can prevent any meaningful changes to it if they so choose. And I'm pretty sure they so choose. But I don't think I'm as depressed about that as you are. Assuming the United States can maintain its broad growth rate, which, looking at demographic and geopolitical factors, I think 2.5 to 3% growth for the next decade is reasonable. You can do deficit spending to the tune of about $800 to $900 billion a year without increasing the relative debt load. Now, I don't feel great about saying this, but the numbers do hold. Second, and this is probably far more important, because our boomers had kids, there is a light at the end of the debt tunnel. There is another surge of capital coming down in 10 years. Most of the world doesn't have that. So everyone else is dealing with our aging process and crisis, and the numbers turning against them at a higher percentage point, at a higher proportion compared to their population. Our boomers are about a quarter smaller than everyone else's because no one else has millennials. So for them, this isn't a 10-year period. This is their now norm. And it will get worse and worse every year until their systems collapse. And in that sort of environment, especially once you throw in things like the Ukraine war and a China breakdown and general deglobalization, the volume of capital internationally that is going to be looking for a safe haven is going to be monumental.